Derek Jenkins was having a pretty normal day by his standards, which meant he was being chased through the maintenance tunnels of Galactic Council Station Alpha 9 by security drones for borrowing a power coupling. Normal, that is, until his comm unit started blaring the universal emergency frequency. Jenkins, get your posterior to Central Command immediately. The voice belonged to Commander Vex Law, and he sounded even more constipated than usual. Kind of busy at the moment, Commander, Derek panted, ducking under a low-hanging pipe. Got 3 security bots on my tail end. Override code Alpha 7 Delta. All security units stand down. The drones pursuing Derek ground to a halt. He skidded to a stop. The stolen power coupling still clutched to his chest. What the hell, Vex Law? I thought we agreed you wouldn't use the override codes unless the fate of the galaxy was at stake. Guess what, Jenkins? It is. 20 minutes and one very awkward turbolift ride later, Derek stood before the Galactic Council's emergency response chamber. The massive viewscreen displayed what appeared to be the smoking remains of a diplomatic vessel. Around him, 12 representatives from the most powerful species in the galaxy were in various states of panic. You're telling me this was Earth's doing? Derek asked, mouth hanging open. Councillor Zith, a 9-foot-tall insectoid, clicked her mandibles nervously. The Council's first official contact delegation approached Earth exactly as protocol dictates. They sent the standard greeting package and waited in orbit for a response. And your primitive species responded by launching 74 separate missile attacks on our vessel, broadcasting something called Welcome to Earth on all frequencies, and then inviting our delegation to something called a barbecue. Derek pinched the bridge of his nose. Was this first contact anywhere near the North American continent? Yes. A place designated as Texas. Well, there's your first mistake. High Chancellor Krill, a gelatinous blob with 7 eye stalks, oozed forward. Jenkins, you are the only human we have who understands galactic politics. You've been among us for 15 years since that unfortunate abduction incident. You mean when your science vessel kidnapped me from my fishing trip? Derek interjected. And you've adapted admirably, Krill continued, ignoring him. We need you to explain your species' behavior. Is this normal? Are all humans this aggressive? Derek sighed, running a hand through his graying hair. Look, you can't just show up unannounced over Texas and expect a warm welcome. That's like walking into a Zarblaxian nest during mating season and asking to borrow some sugar. The council members exchanged horrified glances. But the missiles, squeaked Representative Ploon, a diminutive furry creature, and a disturbing message about barbecue. Our translators indicate this involves cooking flesh over open flame. Well, yeah, Derek shrugged. It's delicious, and as for the missiles, humans are jumpy. We've spent our entire existence expecting aliens to either probe us or blow us up. To blame our entertainment industry. Chancellor Krill's eye stalks trembled. So you're saying this violence is normal for your kind? I'm saying we're complicated. And if you'd consulted the only human you have on hand, that's me, by the way, before making first contact, maybe your fancy ship wouldn't be in pieces. The chamber fell silent. Finally, Commander Vex Law spoke. The Council has reached a decision, Jenkins. You are to accompany a second delegation to Earth as our expert consultant. Derek blinked. You want me to go back to Earth? After 15 years? Indeed. The Council believes that only a human can help us understand humans. Derek looked around the room at the anxious alien faces. He thought about Earth, the smells, the sounds, the taste of actual coffee instead of the synthetic sludge they served on Alpha 9. Fine, he said. But I have conditions. First, I get a full pardon for that little incident with the power coupling. Second, I want real Earth coffee added to the station's replicator menu. And third, he grinned, I get to pick the landing site. Trust me, you don't want to start in Texas. The diplomatic vessel Harmonious Convergence was anything but harmonious 3 days into their journey to Earth. Derek had forgotten how neurotic aliens could be when faced with the unknown, especially when that unknown was his home planet. But is it true they consume the milk of other species? Asked Nix. a feline xenobiologist with fur that changed color with her emotions, currently a worried lavender. Yes, we drink cow milk, and goat milk, and sometimes almond milk, which isn't actually milk at all, Derek replied, tired of the endless questions. Barbaric, muttered Ambassador Dronex, a hovering collection of metallic spheres that formed a roughly humanoid shape. And they allow these cows to roam freely among their cities. No, they live on farms. In the country. Look, can we focus on the mission briefing? The ship's bridge was crowded with the 6-member delegation, each representative chosen for their supposed expertise in primitive species integration. In Derek's opinion, they were the most uptight bunch of aliens he'd ever met. And he'd once spent 3 months in a Vroxian monastery where the monks communicated exclusively through passive-aggressive coughing. Captain Lorne, a blue-skinned humanoid with 4 arms and a perpetual expression of mild constipation, pulled up the mission parameters on the main view screen. Our objectives are simple, she said. First, establish peaceful contact without provoking missile launches. Second, assess whether humans are suitable for eventual membership in the Galactic Council, or if they should be contained. Contained? Derek straightened in his chair. Nobody said anything about containing Earth. Lorne waved one of her hands dismissively. Standard protocol for species that pose a potential threat to galactic stability. Listen up. Derek stood, addressing the entire bridge. Earth isn't perfect, but we're not some disease you need to quarantine. Yes, humans can be impulsive, territorial, and occasionally stupid, but we're also creative, resilient, and make excellent barbecue, which, by the way, is usually not people. Usually, squeaked Dr. Glix, the ship's medic, whose translucent skin revealed his rapidly palpitating hearts. Derek ignored him. If you want this mission to succeed, you need to stop treating Earth like it's populated by monsters. We're just different. Different, nodded Ambassador Dronex, his spheres rearranging themselves nervously. Like how your species still sleeps horizontally instead of in suspension tubes. Or how you voluntarily expose yourselves to dihydrogen monoxide daily. You mean water? We call that showering, and trust me, it's a good thing, Derek sighed. Look, I've prepared a basic primer on human customs. Read it, memorize it, and for the love of whatever deities you worship, try not to look terrified when humans smile at you. But their teeth, protested Nix, fur shifting to a horrified orange. So many and so exposed. Derek rubbed his temples. That's how we show we're friendly. On my planet, showing teeth is a death threat, muttered Glix. Which is why we're landing in Canada, Derek said, the friendliest humans on the planet. If you can't make first contact work in Canada, we might as well turn around now. As the ship hurtled toward Earth, Derek stared out the viewport at the approaching blue marble. After 15 years of freeze-dried alien cuisine, and explaining why humans found flatulence funny, he was finally going back. He just hoped he remembered enough about his own species to prevent an interstellar incident. One more thing, he announced to the nervous crew. When we land, let me do the talking. And whatever you do, don't mention that you've been studying humans through their television transmissions. Trust me on this one. Captain Lorne's 4 arms crossed simultaneously. But we've learned so much from your reality shows. Are you suggesting The Bachelor isn't an accurate representation of human mating rituals? Derek's answering groan could have been heard in the vacuum of space. The harmonious convergence touched down in a clearing outside Vancouver with all the subtlety of a rhinoceros at a China convention. Despite Derek's insistence on a night landing, Captain Lorne had opted for broad daylight, citing optical sensor efficiency, and completely missing the point about not terrifying the locals. Remember, Derek warned as the landing ramp descended, no scanning people without permission, no commenting on their primitive biological inefficiencies, and absolutely no mention of probing. But our research equipment, Dr. Glix began. I don't care if you've got the most advanced molecular analyzer in the galaxy. On Earth, asking to probe someone will get you punched. The delegation stepped onto Canadian soil, their environmental suits hissing and whirring despite Derek's assurance that Earth's atmosphere was perfectly breathable. A small crowd of hikers had already gathered at the edge of the clearing, phones raised to capture what would either be humanity's greatest moment or its most viral meme. Greetings, Earth people. Ambassador Dronex's translation unit boomed far too loudly. We come with peaceful intentions and superior technology. Derek winced. Maybe tone down the superior talk. A brave hiker stepped forward, a middle-aged woman in a Patagonia jacket. Are you aliens? Indeed, Captain Lorne replied, her forearms performing the Galactic Council's traditional greeting gesture, which unfortunately resembled someone having a seizure. And this is our human interpreter, Derek Jenkins. The woman's eyes widened. A human working with aliens? Are you from Earth? Born and raised in Seattle, Derek replied with an awkward wave. Just been. Away for a while. Kidnapped. Dr. Glix helpfully added, and for scientific observation. But we gave him excellent accommodations after the initial vivisection attempts. The crowd took a collective step back. He's joking, Derek said quickly. Alien humor, very dry. Look, we're here on a diplomatic mission. Maybe we could speak to someone in charge? Moshe? Within an hour, the clearing was surrounded by Canadian military vehicles, news helicopters, and at least 3 food trucks that had somehow gotten wind of the event. Derek had to admit, humanity's ability to capitalize on literally anything remained impressive. As they waited for government officials to arrive, the delegation huddled near their ship, looking increasingly disturbed by their surroundings. That human child has been staring at me for 7.3 minutes, whispered Nix, her fur now a paranoid green. And it's holding what appears to be a partially consumed corpse on a stick. Derek glanced over. That's a corn dog, it's food, not a corpse. The humans consume it while making direct eye contact with us, Ambassador Dronex observed with horror. Is this an intimidation display? No, it's just a kid eating lunch while looking at aliens, perfectly normal. Captain Lorne suddenly grabbed Derek's arm with all 4 hands. Jenkins. That human vehicle is discharging smaller humans, dozens of them. Is this a military deployment? Derek squinted at the yellow school bus that had pulled up. That's a field trip. Those are children. So many unrestrained offspring, gasped Dr. Glix, his translucent skin revealing his rapidly beating hearts. Where are their containment pods? As the elementary school class approached, their teacher valiantly trying to maintain order, Derek stepped forward with his most reassuring smile. Hi there. Welcome to First Contact. These are representatives from the Galactic Council, and they're very excited to meet you all. A small boy raised his hand. Do aliens poop? The delegation froze in horror at such a personal question, but before Derek could intervene, Ambassador Dronex's fears rearranged themselves into what passed for his species' equivalent of indignation. Young human, waste elimination is not a topic for casual discourse in civilized society. The children erupted in giggles. He totally poops, announced the boy to his classmates. What followed was chaos as the children bombarded the delegation with increasingly personal questions about alien biology, while the diplomats retreated closer to their ship, clearly reconsidering humanity's potential for galactic membership. Why did that small human ask if I lay eggs? Hissed Nix. How did it know about my reproductive cycle? They were just guessing, Derek sighed. Look, children are curious. It's how humans learn. By violating all standards of privacy and decorum. Captain Lorne looked appalled. Basically, yes. The situation deteriorated further when the Canadian officials finally arrived and attempted to establish formal diplomatic protocols, only to be interrupted by a news helicopter flying too close to the alien ship, triggering its automated defense systems. The resulting light show, harmless but spectacular, sent everyone diving for cover and triggered an immediate military response. As sirens wailed and confused soldiers established a perimeter, Derek found himself standing between nervous aliens and anxious humans, wondering how a simple diplomatic mission could go so wrong so quickly. I told you we should have landed at night, he muttered. The emergency session of the Galactic Council convened precisely 18 hours after what galactic media was now calling the Vancouver incident. Derek stood before the semicircular chamber, feeling like a kid sent to the principal's office, except this principal controlled the fate of his entire planet. Let me get this straight. Chancellor Krill's gelatinous form pulsated with barely contained agitation. Your species responded to our delegation by surrounding them with military vehicles, bombarding them with invasive personal questions, and attempting aerial surveillance of a diplomatic vessel. The helicopters were news crews, not military, Derek clarified. Humans have this thing called freedom of the press. It's messy but important. And the small humans? Asked Councillor Zith. The ones Ambassador Dronex described as terrifyingly direct and obsessed with excretory functions? Those were elementary school kids on a field trip. They ask weird questions because they're, children. The council chambers erupted in overlapping conversations, most containing variations of barbarians and completely unsuitable for galactic society. Derek waited for the noise to die down, wishing he'd had time for coffee before being summoned. High Chancellor Krill raised a pseudopod for silence. The Council has reviewed the preliminary reports and finds Earth's behavior deeply concerning. The question before us is whether humans are inherently dangerous or merely the product of their chaotic environment. Oh, come on, Derek protested. One awkward first contact and you're ready to write off the entire species. We didn't even get to show you poutine. It's not just this incident, interjected Representative Ploon, whiskers twitching nervously. Our cultural analysts have been studying Earth's broadcast transmissions for decades. Your entertainment glorifies violence. Your news reports document constant conflict. Your social media appears designed to foster tribal disputes. Well, when you put it like that, Derek rubbed the back of his neck. Furthermore, continued Councillor Zith, humans appear to be the only sentient species that deliberately seeks discomfort. You intentionally consume burning chemical compounds for pleasure. You mean spicy food? That's just capsaicin. It's not going to kill you. You willingly expose yourselves to temperatures that damage your outer layers until they change color. Sunbathing? Okay, that one's fair. And perhaps most disturbing, added Chancellor Krill, your species seems to consider near-death experiences recreational. Our analysts have documented humans jumping from perfectly functional aircraft, sliding down frozen mountains on narrow planks, and deliberately placing themselves in proximity to large predatory creatures. Derek sighed. Look, humans are complicated. Yes, we do weird stuff sometimes. But we're also the species that invented jazz, created vaccines, and figured out how to make ice cream that tastes like birthday cake. We're not monsters, we're just a little intense. The council deliberated in hushed tones, occasionally glancing at Derek as if he might spontaneously demonstrate one of humanity's more alarming behaviors. Finally, Chancellor Krill addressed him directly. The council cannot ignore the potential threat that humanity poses if integrated into galactic society prematurely. However, we acknowledge that our understanding may be incomplete. Yeah, think? Derek muttered. Therefore, we propose a series of cultural exchange tests. If humans can demonstrate redeeming qualities that outweigh their concerning tendencies, we will reconsider their status. And if we fail these tests, the Chancellor's gelatinous form rippled uncomfortably. Then, for the safety of the galaxy, Earth will be placed under quarantine. No space travel permitted beyond your solar system. No contact with other species. For at least 500 years. Derek's mouth fell open. You can't isolate an entire planet based on one bad first impression and some misunderstood TV shows. We can and we will. Unless you convince us otherwise, said Representative Ploon firmly. The tests will begin immediately. You will select 3 human cultural centers for our delegation to evaluate. Choose wisely, Jenkins. Your species' future depends on it. As the council adjourned, Derek found Commander Vexlaw waiting for him outside the chamber. Well, that could have gone worse, the commander offered. How exactly? They're threatening to put Earth in timeout for 5 centuries. They could have voted for immediate containment. Several members wanted to. Derek ran his hands through his hair. I need 3 locations that will convince skeptical aliens that humans aren't chaotic monsters. Any suggestions? Perhaps avoid places with those all-you-can-eat buffets you once described, Vexlaw said helpfully. The concept still gives Councillor Zith nightmares. Derek chose his locations carefully, a symphony orchestra in Vienna, a hospital in Tokyo, and against his better judgment, but following a Hunter County fair in Minnesota. The delegation, newly briefed and still recovering from their Canadian adventure, approached each destination with the caution of someone petting a sleeping tiger. The Vienna Philharmonic went reasonably well until intermission, when Ambassador Dronex mistook the crowd's rush to the bar for a mass evacuation and triggered the concert hall's sprinkler system. Still, before the chaos, even Captain Lorne had admitted that humans creating organized sound waves was unexpectedly harmonious for such an aggressive species. The Tokyo hospital tour was proceeding smoothly, Derek highlighting humanity's medical advancements and compassionate care until Dr. Glix wandered into the maternity ward. The sight of human reproduction in progress sent the doctor into a state of shock so profound that his translucent body turned completely opaque. They had to carry him out wrapped in hospital blankets while he muttered about the horror of mammalian emergence. Now, as their shuttle descended toward the Minnesota State Fair, Derek was beginning to question his life choices. "Are you certain this gathering is not a combat arena?" asked Nix, whose fur had remained a nervous purple since the hospital incident. "It's a celebration of agriculture and community," Derek assured her. "Humans at their most relaxed and friendly." "Your briefing mentioned something called competitive eating," Captain Lorne said suspiciously. "That sounds alarmingly close to ritualized combat. It's just people eating hot dogs really fast. No one gets hurt except maybe their digestive systems." As they moved through the fair in their poorly concealed disguises, essentially large hats, and sunglasses over their environmental suits, Derek tried to highlight humanity's positive qualities. He pointed out families enjoying themselves, strangers helping each other navigate crowds, and the collaborative artistic achievement of the butter sculptures. "See? Humans cooperating peacefully, enjoying simple pleasures, nothing threatening about that. That human has impaled a large mass of spun sugar on a stick and is consuming it while walking," observed Ambassador Dronex with horror. "The inefficiency alone is barbaric. It's called cotton candy. And it's delicious," Derek said. "Look, instead of focusing on what humans eat, focus on how they're behaving. Notice how no one is fighting despite the dense population." As if on cue, a nearby commotion drew their attention. Two large men were arguing loudly over the results of a livestock competition, their faces reddening as they moved into each other's personal space. "Jenkins," hissed Captain Lorne, "those humans appear to be initiating combat rituals." "No, they're just having a disagreement," Derek said quickly. "Adults expressing different opinions. Very civilized." "Fire." One man poked the other in the chest. The second man shoved back. Within seconds, they were grappling awkwardly while onlookers formed a circle around them. "See? The humans form a ritual combat circle." Ambassador Dronex's spheres clicked nervously, just as their reality television depicted. No, this isn't representative," Derek insisted as fair security moved in to separate the men. "This is an anomaly." But the delegation was already backing away, their reports to the council practically writing themselves. Derek knew he needed something dramatic to change their perception, and fast. As if answering his unspoken plea, the sound of crying cut through the ambient fair noise. A small child had become separated from her parents and stood sobbing near a food stand. Before Derek could react, he watched something remarkable happen. Fairgoers stopped what they were doing. The food vendor came out from behind her counter. A teenager put away his phone. Within moments, a dozen strangers had formed a supportive group around the child, offering comfort and helping to locate her family. "What are they doing?" whispered Nix, her fur shifting to a curious yellow. "They're helping," Derek said softly, without being asked. Without knowing each other. Without expectation of reward. When the child's frantic parents arrived minutes later, the collective relief and joy was palpable. The family embraced while the impromptu support group dispersed, returning to their fair activities without ceremony. The delegation watched in silence. "Is this common?" asked Captain Lorne finally. "More common than the fighting." Derek nodded. "This is who we really are when it matters. Flawed, complicated, sometimes ridiculous, but fundamentally decent." For the first time since landing on Earth, the aliens seemed to be seeing humans as something other than potential monsters. As they continued through the fair, Derek noticed them observing interactions with new interest: the sharing of food, the helping hands extended to elderly fairgoers, the simple courtesy of strangers making space for one another. By the time they reached the animal barns, even Dr. Glix had emerged from his traumatized state enough to ask questions about human-animal relationships that weren't entirely horrified in tone. "So these humans raise these creatures, but don't consume all of them?" he asked, watching a young girl brushing her prize cow with obvious affection. "Some are for food, some are companions, some are both working animals and friends," Derek explained. "It's complicated. Like humans themselves." Ambassador Dronex observed, his fears arranging into what might have been a thoughtful configuration. Derek allowed himself a small smile. Maybe there was hope for Earth after all. The Galactic Council chamber was silent as the final assessment video concluded. Derek stood before them, trying not to fidget as 13 of the most powerful beings in the galaxy deliberated on humanity's fate. The delegation's report had been thorough, including everything from the Vienna Philharmonic to the mini donut stand at the Minnesota State Fair. Chancellor Krill's gelatinous form rippled thoughtfully. "Jenkins, when we first encountered your species, we saw only chaos and potential danger. After more extensive observation, we find humans puzzling." "We'll take puzzling over dangerous," Derek offered. "You are the only known sentient species that deliberately seeks out situations that cause pain, fear, or discomfort for recreation," continued Counselor Zith. "You consume substances that burn your sensory organs, deliberately expose yourselves to gravitational forces that could kill you, and create entertainment that stimulates fear responses. We call that spicy food, roller coasters, and horror movies," Derek nodded. "They're fun." "Fun," repeated Representative Plune, as if testing an alien concept. "Yet these same beings will spontaneously assist unknown juveniles, create organized sound patterns that elicit emotional responses, and maintain relationships with food animals before consuming them." Derek spread his hands. "That's humanity in a nutshell, contradictory, complex, and occasionally ridiculous." Captain Lorne stepped forward from her position with the delegation. "If I may address the Council. When we first arrived on Earth, I believed humans were potentially too volatile for galactic integration. I now believe their volatility may be valuable." The Council murmured in surprise. "Explain," prompted Chancellor Krill. "The galaxy has become static," Captain Lorne said. "Most species achieve space travel only after eliminating their internal conflicts, standardizing their behaviors, and removing inefficiencies. Humans have done none of these things, yet they show remarkable advancements for their development stage." "They are inefficient and impulsive," agreed Ambassador Dronex, his fears forming what Derek had come to recognize as his making a point configuration. "But they are also adaptable in ways we are not. When that human child was distressed, strangers formed a temporary community instantaneously, without protocol or hierarchy. And their medical facilities," added Dr. Glix, still slightly traumatized but professional. "Despite their primitive technology, they've made remarkable progress precisely because they refuse to accept limitations that other species consider immutable." Derek watched in amazement as the delegation he'd been certain would condemn humanity was instead defending it. Chancellor Krill raised a pseudopod for silence. "We must vote on humanity's status. Those in favor of continued observation without integration, illuminate." 3 council members glowed briefly. "Those in favor of quarantine measures, illuminate." 2 members glowed. "Those in favor of preliminary integration protocols with appropriate safeguards, illuminate." 8 council members, including Chancellor Krill himself, glowed brightly. "The Council has decided. Earth will begin the integration process, with Derek Jenkins serving as cultural liaison." Derek exhaled a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. "Thank you, Chancellor." Humanity appreciates your faith in us. It is not faith, Jenkins. It is pragmatism. The galaxy needs what humans have maintained that most species lose upon achieving interstellar capabilities. And what's that? Controlled chaos. Productive contradictions, the ability to be both rational and emotional simultaneously. The Chancellor's fawn rippled in what might have been amusement. Also, Ambassador Dronex has developed an inexplicable fondness for your mini donuts and threatened to resign if Earth was quarantined. As the chamber emptied, Commander Vexlor approached Derek with what passed for a smile on his rigid features. Congratulations, Jenkins. You've saved your planet and earned yourself a permanent position. How does Earth Ambassador to the Galactic Council sound? Derek considered the title. 15 years ago, he'd been abducted while fishing in Maine. Now he was responsible for introducing humanity to the wider galaxy with all its wonders and all its mini donuts. It sounds like the punchline to a very long joke, he replied, but I'll take it. There is one condition, Vexlor added. The Council insists that we establish our first permanent embassy as far from Texas as possible. His decision. Derek nodded solemnly. I hear Canada's nice. As he left the council chambers, Derek couldn't help but smile at the thought of humanity joining the galactic community. They called him a monster because he was raised on Earth. Little did they know that Earth's monsters were exactly what the galaxy needed: humans, with all their contradictions, inefficiencies, and inexplicable love of setting their own food on fire just to see how it tastes. The galaxy would never be the same. Neither would the mini donut market.